You know that feeling when someone sends you their version of something, and you open it, and you read it, and somewhere in the first 30 seconds, you already know you're going to redo this. Not because you plan to, not because you want to spend the next 2 hours fixing something that was supposed to be done, but because you can see exactly what it's missing. And you know that if you send it as is, it's going to reflect on you, on the work, on the standard you've spent years holding. So you close the file, open a blank document, and start again. And then, in the next team meeting, someone asks how the project is going, and you say, "Good, almost done." And you don't mention the part where you rebuilt it from scratch at 10 p.m., because that conversation has never once gone the way you hoped it would. That's not a control problem. That's not perfectionism in the clinical sense. That's what happens when you have a standard that the people around you were never taught to share, and the system you work in was never designed to fix that gap. Quick note, this video is educational, not professional advice. If any of this hits close to home, please talk to a qualified professional. Here's what nobody tells you about people who redo other people's work. They call you a control freak. You're actually someone who understands what finished means. They call you a micromanager. You're actually the person who gets called when the thing that wasn't finished correctly causes a problem 3 weeks later. They call you difficult to work with. You're actually just difficult to disappoint, which is a completely different thing, even if it doesn't always feel that way from the inside. You're not broken. You're carrying something most people around you quietly benefit from without ever acknowledging it. Here's the thing. There's a concept researchers call standards internalization, the process by which some people develop an internal, almost physical sense of what quality looks like, while others don't. And the frustrating truth is that this gap is not about intelligence or effort or how much someone cares. It's about what people were exposed to, what they were corrected on, what environment shaped their baseline. Some people learned early that details matter. Others learned that done is done. And when those two people end up on the same team, one of them redoes the other's work in silence, and the other never finds out. The loneliness of that is real. You're not imagining it. But then there's something else happening here. And this is the part that's harder to say out loud. There's usually a control layer too, because handing something off and trusting it will come back the way you need it to is not just a practical risk, it's a psychological one. Researchers studying delegation found that people with high personal standards experience handing off work as a form of exposure. If the output is bad and your name is attached, the failure feels personal, even when the work wasn't yours. So you redo it, not just because it wasn't good enough, but because redoing it is the only way to guarantee that what goes out the door is something you can stand behind. The control isn't about power, it's about protection. It's about knowing that the version of the work that exists in the world matches the version that exists in your head. Because that gap, when it's visible to others, feels like a betrayal of everything you've quietly stood for. Now, here's where it gets interesting. There's a cost to this that almost nobody talks about, because it doesn't show up anywhere official. Researchers studying cognitive load in high-standard workers found that people who consistently compensate for others' output, redoing, fixing, quietly elevating, carry a disproportionate mental burden that is invisible to performance reviews, invisible to managers, and invisible to the colleagues whose work they're covering. You do your job. Then you do enough of someone else's job to make the whole thing work. And at the end of the quarter, the output looks fine. Which means, to everyone watching, the team worked.
The team didn't work. You worked. Twice. And the system logged it as a team success. And here's the layer that makes it genuinely exhausting. You can't stop. Because stopping means the quality drops. And the quality dropping means something goes out that doesn't meet your standard. And something going out that doesn't meet your standard feels, in your body, like a specific kind of failure that you have spent your entire career trying to avoid. So you keep going, and the system keeps benefiting. And nobody asks why you seem tired. But let's clear something up. The reason your team has a redoing problem is not because you're controlling and they're lazy. It's because most organizations are built around task completion, not quality development. The question the system asks is, did it get done? Not, did anyone learn how to do it better? Training budgets get cut. Feedback culture doesn't exist. Junior people get thrown into deliverables without anyone explaining what good actually looks like. And the people who know what good looks like, people like you, get quietly positioned as the safety net. You were never supposed to be the safety net. You were supposed to be a colleague. But the system figured out, probably early, that you would catch things. And it stopped building the structures that would make catching unnecessary. Why invest in raising the floor when someone will always raise it for free? That's not a character flaw in you. That's an incentive structure that found a person it could rely on and never looked back. Here's what they don't tell you. The reason you redo things is not because you're difficult. It's because at some point, a long time ago, someone showed you what careful looks like, what considered looks like, what it means to send something out and know that every part of it was intentional. And that got into you. Deep. And now, you can't unsee it. Yeah, that is not a liability. That is a specific kind of sight that most people never develop. The problem is not that you have it. The problem is that you're in rooms where you're expected to be quiet about it, where naming the gap feels like attacking the person, where holding the standard feels like holding yourself above everyone else, when really, you're just holding the work to the thing it could be. The work you quietly fix will never thank you. The system that benefits from your fixing will never acknowledge it. But the thing that gets sent out, cleaner, sharper, more considered than it arrived, that exists because you exist. And that is not nothing. You are not a control freak. You are someone who learned to care about the details in a world that mostly doesn't. And that is both a gift and an unfair amount of weight to carry alone. So the next time you open someone's file and feel that familiar, sinking recognition, you don't have to pretend it isn't there. You don't have to perform enthusiasm for work that isn't finished. But you also don't have to carry it all alone forever. The goal is not to lower your standard. The goal is to find the rooms where the standard is already there, where you're not the ceiling, you're just part of the floor. Those rooms exist. You just haven't been in enough of them yet. Now tell me, are you team, I redo it silently and say nothing? Or team, I've tried giving feedback and it never changes anything? Drop it in the comments. And if this video made you feel less alone in something you've never quite been able to explain, hit subscribe. We're here every week breaking down the psychology of work that nobody talks about. Because understanding why you are the way you are, that's not just interesting, that's powerful.